This is me back with a new video. Last week we discussed about Node.js a little bit, and briefly we learned how to test your simple JavaScript functions with Node.js, and we understood that Node.js as a technology is backing most of the single page full stack JavaScript applications as being an environment and platform. Okay, being slightly moved away from server side, today we're going to discuss how do you create a ReactJS application, a very simple application to get started, and call API and grab the data, and how do you define the file structure in your ReactJS application, and basically all the things that you're going to need to get started with React. Okay, let's get started by just typing a couple of commands in your command prompt. Alright, last week we learned that we get npm, a node package manager, once we install Node.js. So if you do not have Node.js installed in a computer yet, then just go to Node.js official website and download Node.js, and you get npm with that package as well. So npm install, I type a command, create react -app space -g. What this -g means is once you type a command with -g, that package installed in your computer globally. That means once you navigate to any other folder location in your computer and started working on an app, then this package you install with -g command will be there for that app. So you don't need to create and install that package again in the scope of your new app, but once you have this package installed as -g, then it already support all the features in this package to your computer, to your app that you're going to design. Okay, I will type this and it will bring me a essentials which I require to write ReactJS app. Okay, you can see I already had this package installed and it just updated for me, but if you are new to this one, you will get a brand new installation. Next thing is navigate to your folder location where you wanna develop your app. I copy this and oops. Yeah, so now with this package installed in globally, you have set up an environment for React, and then you just type a command, react app space your application's name. Say a simple app in my case, so you can give whatever name you require for this. This command is recognized as a command to create a application for us. You can see a bunch of these packages will be installed. So once everything is done, you will get back to your origin state, and you can see these two commands right here. So yarn is another package manager just like npm. If you do not have yarn installed yet in your computer, you can just go to yarn official website and download that and install. It's just a simple plain installer, and once you install yarn in your computer, you can run a yarn command just like in npm. So there's no difference, it's just another package manager for JavaScript, and I'm gonna write a yarn command for this. Yarn. Okay, before I run this command, I will show you the folder structure. This app is created, you can see that, and inside that you can see a bunch of folders and random files. So these are general files for any JavaScript project. I'm not gonna discuss them with you today. src folder is what your app actually stays. All the things that are required to start the React app, a simple React app, stays in this folder. So src folder for the front end development, and when you extend your application, you can create multiple folders and subfolders, etc. accordingly. Okay, so let's go back here and start your app. Okay, you can see your app loaded in your browser on this part. Okay, so all good, and all you're gonna do is now open this one from your favorite text editor. So I use VS Code in my case. Go ahead, open folder, simple app, select that. So you can see yeah, there you go. So all the files loaded, and app.js is where you're gonna modify your app, and index.js is representing the index page. So since it's a single page app, this app apparently is having only one HTML page. Okay, so that HTML page stays in here under the public folder, that is the index.html, and the application that you're gonna write loaded inside this div, root div, right? It just, how it works is index.html page loaded for the first time in the browser, and then the rest of the other pages, components that you're going to create inside your application is going to load inside this div. Okay, so there are no other pages hold to adapt how much this app is going to extend or complex. Okay, let's start by creating our first component in React. What I'm going to do first is I do not create a new component, but I will just modify app.js and show you guys how the development nature works. We do not need this logo, and we not going to use that. We'll clean it up, and all this bunch of this code I'm going to delete them, right? And in here, if you change something like, say I just give a HTML header tag and write my first React app. Okay, let's see what happened in your browser. If you go to oh, there you go, it just reflect straight away in your app, in your browser, because it has set up a background processor to always watch your changes that you're going to do in your app. So whatever mistake that you do, syntax errors, compile time errors, everything is going to catch by these watchers, and it is reflect in the UI while you are writing the app. So JavaScript is not compiled language. It's a interpreted language, but in this case there are some concept called transpiler that it actually validates JavaScript syntax and revert this custom syntax back to the plain JavaScript. That's what a transpiler does. The word is transpiler. So it's not really a compiler, just like you create your DLL, binaries and all. No, it's not working like that, but it's just validate your syntax, and then it convert back this custom syntax in your React or TypeScript or whatever the language, whatever the high-level language that you write, it convert back to the JavaScript and help browser to understand. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first component. I will create a folder called components, and okay, all the components that we're going to write inside our app is going to load inside this folder. Let's understand what are the components in the web application. Let's go back to one of the, okay, I have already opened a website. Let's understand what are the components. Okay, there's a logo you can see here, there's a menu bar you can see here, there's a header section you can see here. Okay, scroll down a little bit and you can see multiple other components like this area, and the slider can be a component, and this widget can be a component, and even the list of users right here. Let me open my console quickly and then you can see even this name card can be component, and this guy as a whole can be component as well. Likewise, every part in this web page we can consider as a components. And what React does is, React has provided us a framework to work with the components and combine all these components and let them work as one component can work as a one single unit, as a capsule which contains the HTML part of that. This is a HTML part which is gonna render to the UI, and also this component contains a JavaScript function to bring the data, bind the data to the UI, or call the APIs, or display the data, and all these various things which are related to this HTML UI. Okay, I'm going to write a very simple form inside that. Say form very quickly, and let's define a couple of input fields. Type equal text, one text box, and a one button control. Okay, let's give it a name. Say bring me data. Once we click this, we can get called API and get back the data. Okay, this is a very simple snippet, HTML snippet. So what I want to show you here is, let's go back to our app and see how it works. Okay, let me bring back to the, okay, there you go. You can see text field and one of the button controls being created. So the important thing here to understand is this guy, the render method of the component, can only return one parent element. So in my case, I have only one parent element, that is this parent div, and inside that I have a couple of other HTML tags, h1 and the form. So let's say if I have this one outside a parent div, what will happen? I put it right here. So then we have two parent elements, this one a one element and this one another element, and there is no wrapper control, wrapper division to wrap these two guys together and return one single parent. It's not happening like that now. So let's see how the React identifies it. Okay, it gives straight away a compile time error. So then how do you fix that is, you need to combine these two, h1 and the form tag, together and then return one single parent element. Okay, this is something you have to understand when you create your HTML part of the component to avoid unexpected syntax errors. Okay, let me extend this method by writing a small and simple get data method. I will write a arrow function. In JavaScript EX6 we do have arrow functions. It has simplified a syntax to just like this. You just need a parentheses, an arrow together with curly braces, and then what I'm going to do is I will display a alert, get data. Let's see, if I type here in my onClick event, I'm going to give a method name get data as in all plain JavaScript. So in our old school JavaScript that we used to written from university days, we used to write a method inside assign that to the event, and then this guy is identified by a JavaScript engine. But let's see what happens now. So this is pure string and the on click is the event, and let's see what is happening. I will open the console. Right away you can see an exception. It's saying the on click listener to be a function instead of a string value. So now what happens is, this is not a pure JavaScript, this is React. Therefore you can't give a method name just like in plain JavaScript. Instead, because if you give it something like this, it actually identified this as a one string input to this guy. So we are not going to do that. So right syntax will be curly braces and this means this component, app component, and this dot get data. Okay, so this guy, the get data function, stays inside this app component class. So we just like a normal object oriented program, we call it this, and the method name this would get data. Let's see what happens now. Go back here, and there is no errors you can see in console, and just click that and see the function is already triggering. So we all good to go, and it's up to us to extend this method. Okay, now let's extend this method to submit a form and get input field value from the form and use this inside this method. Alright, first of all I will give a name for this guy. My input field name equals, let's say, unlock, and let's give a placeholder unlock code. Okay. Now what I need is, I need to get the value of this input control inside this method. How I'm going to do that is using ReactJS state. So React has something called state. It is by default inside a component you can have this variable and assign the state values of the component. So if you are a developer from AngularJS, so you know that Angular has something called MVVM, model view model, with the two-way bindings. Whatever you change in the UI, it's reflect in the model, and whatever the changes you do in the model immediately reflect in the UI. But in React we do not find this, but in ReactJS, how do they handle the UI state? The component state is using this state variable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, whenever a user types something in this input field, I need to track that and put it into the state. So I am going to define a new method. Let's define our method first to keep the track of this input field. Let's say track, yeah, it's a good name, track unlock. Okay, it's not a good name, but it's okay for us to understand how the state works. And then I call that guy from here, this dot track unlock, and I'm going to pass this input control. I'm going to receive this input control as a whole, as a parameter here, and React has a default method to set state as a JSON object. Say unlock e dot target dot value. So what I did just now was, whenever someone types something in the UI control and I call my onChange and call this method and then track the current value of the controller inside the state, React state. Okay, so now it's not a big deal to access the value from here, because whatever you change is already stored in the state, and it's just a matter of access that. This dot state dot unlock now should contain the value that the UI control currently has. So let me type that in the console, and let's see how it works. Okay, let's go through one more time. If everything is correct, you have an on change event and your method, it's all good, and you are receiving the value from the state, and yeah, this looks good. Let me go back to my code and unlock. Okay, there's an exception here, right? I think I did a mistake. Yeah, I think it's a typo. Yeah, oops, this guy should be unlock, not unclock. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see. All right, so all good. We can see a placeholder, and we'll type the name Hasi and click this. Okay, alert first, and then in the console you just saw the Hasi, but the page refreshed. Okay, because this button actually refreshed the page. Now we need to fix that. It's not a hard thing. It's a plain JavaScript. What we need to do is e.prevent default, because the default functionality of this button actually refreshes the page. I do not want to do that once we trigger this function. So what I will do is I will prevent the default functionality of this button. Now let's see how it works. I will type Hasi again and click that. All good. Okay, page did not reload, but we can see the value here, Hasi. Okay, so you just got an idea about how the React state works, and you can practice this simple example at your home when you're free time. So this is not a end of our video, because I need to cover a couple of more concepts. How to call API and bring the data and display the data is one of these sections. The other section is how do you organize your components inside an app. So this is not a good way of doing a program. You have all inside your HTML, your methods, everything in the app.js. It's not a good idea. So instead, what you should do is you create another component inside your components folder called form.js, or whatever name you can give as you wish. Now form.js, I will give a name of the class form extends. First of all, I need to import React from React. React is a class library, a package that we installed prior to started application development. React.component, and this is your class. So now what you want to do is you have your render method inside that, and then you can return your HTML inside that as well. Okay, your HTML is currently stays in here. So what I'm going to do is I will copy this form element, cut it and get it to here. Alright, now I move that HTML to here. So it looks good to go, but I still need, now I created my component, but I still need to export this component. For if I want to import this component in the other parts of the application, I need to export this guy as default form, whatever name you like to give. The form is this, the name of your class. Okay, they're all good in our component, and the next thing is importing that. How you going to import it in app.js? It's not a big deal. Import form from the location is dot components slash form. Okay, you just import this class. This this line, this statement will do that. You are importing this component inside app.js, but still this does not work until you call the component you created like this. Okay, now let's see what has happened. Oh, this is not good. There are so many compile time exceptions. We'll see what are the simple mistakes that we have done first. Okay, these two methods should not contain inside the app.js now, because we have moved our component to the form, and I will type it here. Right. Okay, let's see now. It still doesn't like the way we code. Let's see. Okay, let's scroll up one more time and see what is the mistake we have done. I think this is okay. It's just import statement and class form extends react.component. Oh, okay, I think I did a mistake here. It should be caps. Let's double check, because class names should be caps. Yeah, I think that should fix that. Yeah, there you go. So you can see your code is now back to the normal, and let's check after we refactor the components. Okay, still it works. So we have refactored the code in a way that it moves to the different components as a different component, and we call the component inside the app.js as a form element. Now you have a rough idea about how the ReactJS works and the nature of the development. Now let's go back and see how do we extend this function to call the actual API and get the data. I found this data API which used to return dummy fake data for us. I'm not sure about where it origin from, but I just googled and found this one. So you can use the same. I will put a link down below in the description for the URL for you to use that. It gives us a JSON result of fake user data. 3 records you can find here. I will first get the URL to here, and now let's see the easiest way that we can call the API in React and fetch data. React has a simple method called fetch that you can just give the name of the URL, the location, just like this. Okay, so what this does is this actually fetch the data and get the data back to this, store data back in this URL. Let's see if this works first. I don't think this would still work, but I just want to show you what is the output that we get from this. Oops. Yeah, okay, we do not need this. I will comment that. will comment our alert as well. Let's format one more time. Yeah, there you go. So let's go back to our code and see how our application works now. Console, let's try something and bring data. Okay, what is the output? This is interesting. These are the data that we requested. This is the data I was expecting, but instead it is giving me a promise about the coding with JavaScript. Most of the functions in JavaScript defined as a promise. What the promise is, there's a way, the nature of JavaScript coding style that we call as asynchronous way of coding, because the JavaScript is single-threaded. There is no multi-threading in JavaScript. Every request that you send to the server or that you send to do some operation works in the single thread. So just think about a traditional client-server architecture that we used to do in the PHP or .NET or Java. So each and every request that you send to the server create a separate thread in the server. So that is a multi-threaded architecture. But in JavaScript, we only have a one thread, single threaded. Because of that, every operation which takes time, like reading API, reading a file, or database operation, query, or whatever the thing that takes time, has something called callback. Oops, I'm too fast. Something called callback. The meaning of callback is you send a request, you ask the method to do something, but I am not getting a result immediately. Okay, I repeat that again. If you call this method, I do not yet get the data because this one just initiated the request, but the actual response is coming in some point of time in the future. That's why we call it a promise. This method promise us that I will give you data but not immediately. Okay, it will come in some point of time in the future, and then once the data receives, we can access the data just like this with the callback method. Response, I will drop an arrow function, say console.log and response. Okay, now I hope you guys understood the concept here. Is a single threaded and asynchronous way of coding, and therefore we do not get the results immediately, and we need to get the data through a promise, through a callback function. Now let's see what happens. Oops, I think there's an exception. Okay, yeah, I need to give a name because we do not have a validation for this field, so unfortunately I need to give a name, type something. Okay, the promise and response. Response is received now, but the response is not what we expected yet, because it should be something like this, the JSON data, right? Response we can see, but it's not yet what we required. Reason is I need to get the JSON from the response. So the React has this function, and it gives a function for us to fetch the data, to validate the data, and we want to fetch from the API and then convert them back to the JSON. So even this function still works as a promise, and therefore I need to write my my callback method to get that. console.log res. Okay, so let's see what is happening now. So we got a promise here, and therefore it's not enough, and then we call the callback function of the promise, and promise returns a response, but that response is not JSON, and then we converted them back to the JSON, and I'm displaying the output now. Let's go back here. Okay, bring me data. Okay, so this is what I expect, the real data. Okay, so let's comment this part for the moment. And see that. Okay, the promise is still login because we have everything inside this console log. They have two console logs. This console.log actually print the promise returns by JSON, and then the response given here as this. You can see there are 3 elements of data array, they're exactly same as what we see here. So it means the calling API works pretty well. Now let's see very quickly some other way that we can do the same task without promise. There are various ways to work with asynchronous behavior of JavaScript. One way is promise. There's another way called ReactJS, observables. That's a different concept. And another thing called async await. So explaining all these concepts is not the scope of this video today. Okay, I'm not going to explain everything like promise or what is observable and what is async await. But since I want to show you another way of doing the same task, I will utilize these 2 keywords to achieve the same thing. How I'm going to do that is let's comment this first. I'll copy that first and then comment that and write the same code, and just like this. Instead of calling a callback method of the promise, what I'm going to do is I will give this async keyword at the beginning of my method, and I let the JavaScript knows that I'm going to use this function as a asynchronous function. I expect asynchronous behavior, and then I do not need this guy. Sorry, I will cut this. I do not need this guy now. Instead, I will say that I'm gonna wait for my response. I will wait for my response, and once this is an asynchronous function, okay, this still works asynchronous, but I want to wait till the result comes and then execute the next line of code. Okay, in this case this would be JSON, and yeah, this should be data. Sorry, yeah. Okay, now let's see if it still works. Yeah, all good, no compile exceptions. Yeah, you can see it works exactly same as what the promise works, and bring back the data we expected. Alright, so I think I discussed a decent amount of things about ReactJS and calling the API and asynchronous way of coding and the promises and a little bit of async and await and observables. So the idea behind is video is not to give a comprehensive overview about how to develop a complete application, but if you have a hesitation yet to start React and you have not started it yet, so this is opportunity for you to get started and understand how quickly you can get the things going with like a very less amount of time. Okay, that's the end of my video, and let's meet on another video. And in the next video I'm going to style my application and make it more prettier than this. This is more technical, but I need to make it as a more pretty presentable way for you guys to give you more motivation to work. And then in my next video let's do that. Okay, see you.